Hi, I'm Ash Johnson and I'm going to present my idea for a short film that I've written that hopefully you will consider for being made. It's called Band of Thieves. The story follows a group of teenage runaways who are led by a ruthless, savage boy called Maxie. And they live in the forest, away from a society that has not treated them well. It's a society that's been cruel to them for a whole bunch of reasons. Like some of them have run away from abusive homes, some from a foster system that has tried to separate two siblings. And that's sort of the one thing they all have in common. They've all been treated badly by society, so they've all sort of found each other. The script itself tells a story of how Sally came to join the runaways, because on the surface she does seem like a very privileged, maybe a bit weak city kid, but eventually she proves herself to be tough enough. The main theme is a theme of revenge, because the runaways, they're all sort of getting revenge on society. Because when the city kids sort of find their hideout, Maxie will kill them, and a lot of the other runaways will kill as well. Because they don't trust them. They think that the city kids are going to tell the police, and then their lives will be ruined. And, you know, like I said before, society has not been nice to them, so they're not being nice back, and they're basically just killing people. It also obviously deals with individual versus society a lot, but it's more like a group of individuals versus society. Love Conquers All also plays into it a little bit, because eventually it is the connection between Roxy and Sally that sort of saves Sally in the end. Yeah, this is a more detailed look into the story. It follows mostly a girl called Roxy, who is sort of the right-hand girl to the leader. Obviously, living in the forest, they're not going to have any money, but they do need food. So Roxy robs a sort of corner shop. She takes a lot of food, just stuff that you can eat raw or can be cooked over the fire, and she steals some alcohol as well. And when she is stealing, she is noticed by Sally. Now, Sally could have told the shopkeeper that she was there, could have alerted the police, and then Roxy would be arrested. But Sally chose to let her go. So Roxy is sort of indebted to Sally a little bit. But she assumes that she'll never see her again, so she doesn't think too much of it, and she goes back to the forest, not realising that she is being followed by Sally. When she notices that she has been followed, she thinks she should probably kill Sally, because she does not trust her to keep their secret. And she's worried that if Sally tells the police, their lives will be over. But because she is indebted to her, she decides to let her go. But she tells her she can never come back to the forest. But Sally does. She comes back later that night when all the runaways are asleep. Roxy hears sort of twigs snapping outside the tree house that they live in. So she climbs out and she finds Sally. And she's quite angry at first, like, I told you to never come back. And she tries to walk away, telling Sally there's no point in you being here, I'm not going to acknowledge you now. Then Sally says, yeah, you're going to stay with me, because if you don't, I could tell the police. So Roxy, being scared, but also not wanting to kill her, decides to stay with her. And they get to know each other, and it turns out that Sally is also a runaway. She ran away from an abusive home. And they actually have quite a bit in common, and they become friends. But Roxy she obviously can't tell the other runaways because she doesn't want Sally to be killed. So she tries to keep it a secret. But unfortunately, Maxie sees the two together. The next night, Roxy goes out to meet Sally, but Maxie follows, and he sort of basically kidnaps the two. He hits them with rocks, and they're unconscious, and he ties them to trees. When they wake up, Maxie tells Roxy that she has to choose between the runaways or Sally. Now, Roxy's a bit torn initially, but the runaways are her family, and they have been for a long time. So she'll always be loyal to them. So she chooses them. But she begs Maxie not to kill Sally. Maxie doesn't really listen, because he's angry at Roxy. He wants to annoy her. He also doesn't trust Sally. So he tries to kill her. But Sally fights back. And when she's fighting back, that's when Maxie realises that she is actually very tough, and that she's not going to sell them out, and that she could have a place in the runaways. So he offers her a place. Sally decides to join the runaways for Roxy, so that those two can be together. There are 5 speaking characters. There's Maxie, who is the leader. He has been living in the forest for the longest, and he's also the most distrusting, especially of city people, but just in general, really. The person he trusts most is Roxy. He has been living in the wild for so long that he has become quite savage. He doesn't really think twice about killing people. He doesn't feel remorse when he does it. Although he is a born leader, he can be quite selfish, but he treats the runaways kindly and fairly, so they all remain loyal to him. Roxy, as I said, is the right-hand girl. She likes attention. She likes everything to be about her. And she also loves exploring. She loves running through the trees and stuff. She's very protective over her friends. She's willing to die for them if she needs to. But she will stand up to anyone who crosses her or her friends. Sally is kind of the opposite of Maxie, really. She's a teenage girl who ran away from an abusive home. She's very caring, probably a bit too trusting. For example, she trusts Roxy, even though Roxy is thinking about killing her. And she would rather avoid conflict at all costs. But if she has to fight, then she will. And she will fight well. Benji and Robbie are 2 brothers who ran away from the foster system to avoid being separated. They really only care about each other, and they are loyal to Maxie and the runaways, but the main reason they stay with them is to keep each other safe. My main inspiration for this film was Peter Pan. Maxie himself is inspired by the character Peter, and the whole sort of general aesthetic of the film is inspired by Neverland. I also took a lot from Robin Hood, The 100, Newsies, and Lord of the Flies. So sort of basically films or TV shows about sort of a group of teenage misfits fighting against rich adults, basically. For research, other than watching the films that inspired it, I set up a Pinterest board, which will show you the general aesthetic of the film. As you can see, it's quite dark, but there is a lot of green, because they live in the forest, obviously. So yeah, because it is quite a dark story, I wanted the cinematography to be quite dark as well. But it has sort of playful, colourful undertones. There are 3 locations. The main one is the forest. Now that can be filmed pretty much in any forest, really. Obviously, we'll probably need sort of council permission for a large crew, but it can be done, and hopefully probably wouldn't cost anything. The interior of the treehouse that could be filmed on set. I think art department could definitely make something to look like the inside, but the outside is potentially an issue because it would have to be an actual treehouse. There are places where you can hire tree houses, but I haven't found any locally yet, but I am looking into it. But if the worst comes to the worst, the exterior doesn't really need to be seen. And then there's the newsagents, which would probably have to be filmed on set again, because I don't think any newsagents would sort of let us just hire them for the day. Any questions? Yeah.
How feasible do you think it is to actually make in terms of budget and actual work that needs to go into it?
I think at the moment it's maybe a bit long. It's about 12 pages. But I think it can definitely be cut down to about sort of 6 or 7, and I think that would make it a lot more feasible. And with the cut down version, maybe the newsagents wouldn't be necessary, which would avoid that issue. I think it is quite cost effective because the forest, and you don't have to pay for that, and then the rest is on set. So I think it is quite feasible.